couple years ago, I was in Miami on a shoot, and I actually was on the Hub, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Hub, but the Hub used to be more of a thing. Maybe it still is, I don't know, but it's a creative community. And I went on there looking for a photographer who could help me on the shoot. That's when I connected with Brandon, and we've been kind of in touch ever since. But the reason why I wanted to hop on here is because I'm on lockdown in quarantine, Brandon is as well. And I know a lot of other photographers are right now, graphic designers, we all are. And I think there's something really cool about what's going on right now, Brandon, with you and the way that you're approaching client work in photography. And I first want you to share a little bit about yourself that I didn't touch on already. And then maybe just touch on what you messaged me, I think it was a week ago, in regards to just how you're responding to this time as a creative.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, you touched the base on my background: art director, photographer, designer. I like to dabble in a bunch of different creative fields and learning from other creatives. But I live in Miami, Florida, and I have all my resources there for photo shoots. I have my props, I have my lighting. I already have like locations down. And but during the quarantine times, I relocated to New Jersey to stay with some family, and I basically brought the bare minimum. I brought my clothes, my camera gear, and my dog. And I drove up here. It took me like 2 days. And I knew that the only way to approach client work was going to be for at-home studio shots, or makeshift studio, we'll say, because it's not obviously a studio. But I had to approach it with like the bare minimum, assess what what I can get delivered to a client without, promising something that used to be able to deliver with like full studio setup. So let me see. So I basically made like a master list of a bunch of different brands that I would want to reach out to, and then I put them in like hierarchy order on which ones I wanted to work with first and what I could actually deliver to them. And then from then on, I just mood boarded and shot. But it was the absolute bare minimum. I think it was 3 poster boards that I did for my first brand in quarantine.
That's insane. So I think that's the part when you messaged me saying that you pulled off the shoot. I mean, you showed me the final images that came from it. And with your background in design, you added some incredible elements to those images, which I feel like definitely spiced them up a little bit. But okay, most people out there, I feel like a lot of photographers that I talk to, they think that they need the most expensive lighting setup, the most expensive camera gear in order to pull off a shoot. And especially during this time, it's definitely challenging for me because I'm an extrovert who loves working with people. And your portfolio is full of portraits and lifestyle images. So first, like, as far as gear and props go, I mean, how much were the poster boards?
I bought 3 white poster boards from CVS, and it probably cost me like a total of $9. And that's basically all I had to work with, and whatever else prop wise, which I really didn't have, that was it at my girlfriend's house. But I usually have like, shelves of props in my house, just ready to go. And, I think a lot of photographers have props ready to go just so they could, beauty up the scene and just make it that much easier to sell to a client. But like during this time, I had nothing. So I just had to make sure that the props were crisp. I mean, the shots were crisp.
Totally. How did you use the poster boards? So you check out screens or CVS, you got the poster boards, you bring them home. How did you set it up?
So I knew I needed 3 for main reasons. I needed 1 to have a white backdrop. I needed 1 to lay flat for the surface. And then I was shooting through a single window light. Like I really don't have the best natural lighting. So I was literally like, this was the window, and then this is where my props were. And I had the 3rd one parallel with the window, just in case I wanted to reflect some of that natural light to reduce the shadow, because there were some pretty harsh shadows coming in since it was coming through a tiny window.
And I think, you tell me if I'm wrong, but one challenge is when you're shooting and relying on natural lighting, especially coming through a window, you kind of have to plan it out, and things are going to change. There's a few things that are going to shift as you're shooting, like the lighting, the sun. Like right now, there's a lot of cloud coverage here where I am in Minnesota, where if I was doing a shoot right now, I'd have to take breaks if I was going for that direct sunlight look. How did you manage to pull that off? Because like, as I look at the images that you shared with me, They all look very consistent.
Well, it was I really didn't know that I was gonna shoot this specific window when I first got here.
Mhm.
I think it was like the second day where I woke up at like 8 in the morning and I opened my eyes and I just saw this beautiful light coming through the window and through the blinds. Like, okay, like that's money. There it is. But so I planned out the shoot and I had everything set up the night before. I had the table laid out, I had the poster boards ready, I had the props, the products all cleaned up. And the biggest issue, I think, during the shoot was waiting for the cloud coverage. There were times where you would have like softer shadows or no shadows at all, no light coming through. And that not only changes your exposure, but it changes the temperature of the shot as well. So like the color and the highlights will change, the color of the product will change. And if you're trying to send a full set to a client, you want to show consistency.
Totally.
Because I think that sells like half of the, how would you say it? Shows half the confidence as opposed to just the shots itself. And if you're trying to, build a relationship with a client, you want to show confidence that you can deliver every time.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I approach my work the same way. Where if I'm shooting outside or inside, outside more than inside, but I'm always checking my light balance because I want to make sure that the coloring in camera, I can crush it. Even though you can, if you're shooting raw, you can adjust that in post. So man, I can only imagine that there's a lot of different things that are happening as you're shooting inside. And also shooting against a white backdrop is not easy. I mean, trying to achieve that pure white, you really got to know what you're doing. And then also you got to know what you're doing in Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yeah.
Question for you, because I know there's a lot of photographers out there that shoot Team Canon, Nikon, Sony. What was your setup for this shoot? What gear did you have?
So I shoot on Sony an A7 II, not the R2, the A7 II, which is probably like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, if not more. And I think I have like the old man camera out of the whole Sony team because Sony comes out with new models like every season, like iPhone. But so I shot on that, and I shot on a Tamron 28-75 2.8.
Wow.
But I usually like product photography. I usually shoot on my 55 1.8 just because it's so crisp, and that's generally the focal length that I want to use for product photography, so the lines aren't distorted.
Cool.
But I was working with such a small space that I wanted to be able to shoot wider at like a 35 or a 30, and then just get more of the scene in there.
That's awesome. What were your settings for the most part? I mean, you're shooting handheld, or you're shooting with a tripod?
I was shooting handheld just because I was dealing with inconsistent lighting. I wanted to get as many shots as I could in the short amount of time I had with cloud coverage changing. So I think I was shooting at ISO 100. My aperture was probably at like f8 or higher.
Okay.
I first started off a little bit lower, but then I was like, if I'm going for a studio look, I want to have everything as crisp as possible.
Nice.
So I wanted to make sure all my edging around the entire bottle, around the entire product was sharp. So, and then my shutter speed was just adjusting based on the aperture, but I don't think I went below like 1/25 of a second.
I think you just said something that I don't want people to miss, because again, there's a lot of photographers out there right now that are wedding photographers that are having to push out everything, into 2021 even. And then just a lot of portrait photographers, lifestyle photographers that have never shot product before. And what you said in regards to the aperture being around an 8 or even, 8, 9, 10, I think is so important to just point out, because I have seen product photography done the wrong way. And it's with an aperture of like 2 or 1.5, and it's like middle of the product is focused, but the outside edges is blurry. And that might work with shooting people, but as I look at your photos that you took, the detail is insane. And
yeah, I really try to narrow in that detail. I feel like with certain clients, you can have that open aperture look and have that blur, but that's more along the lifestyle product photographies that you had said. But if you're trying to like mimic a studio, you usually have studio lighting like strobe or continuous, so you can bump up the aperture and get that sharpness all around.
That's good. So what are like 3 tips that you can leave photographers with that are maybe Right now, looking at doing an in-house shoot, because obviously right now we're all in quarantine and on lockdown, and we have no idea when this thing's going to go back to normal, if it even will. What are 3 tips that you can give? I mean, one tip that I kind of am pulling from your story, which inspires me, is you are a go-getter. You're like, you know what? Beautiful day out. There's sunshine. I'm going to go get some poster boards and I'm going to make this happen. So what are 3 tips that you can leave photographers with? Whether it's, again, getting out and just shooting with things that are in your house already, that you have access to already, making sure that your aperture is strong. What are 3 tips that you can give photographers that might be watching this?
I mean, there's so many tips that I could probably give out. I say really look at what the client is putting on their feed. If you're trying to shoot for a specific brand, figure out their aesthetic. Don't just shoot what you think looks cool and deliver to them. I feel like a lot of photographers just shoot what they want to shoot and expect the client to like them, as opposed to delivering content or solutions for a client that they actually need. So like I could have gone a bunch of different ways with this shoot, but I knew that the direction that I was going for was suited for my client. Besides that, I would say really study product photography, figure out why the shots look the way they do. There are a few different approaches to doing anything, but you got to figure out what works with you and what works with the gear that you do have. And then really hone in on your retouching. I think if you want to get to a higher level of client or a higher budget with your client, then you're going to have to learn how to retouch and really manipulate color, because you could take a photo and deliver it right out the barrel and it'll look good. But if you zoom in, you'll see so many imperfections, so many dust marks, so many scratch marks, and like little things that a client, if they saw it right off the bat, they'd be like, okay, this is very unprofessional.
I think that's the designer in you too, the attention to detail, because I mean, even as you were editing that set of photos from the shoot, you sent me a video of you editing and you were zoomed in on Photoshop, and I think it's the brightest you could get, and you were editing out, sponging out the little specks of, I don't know if it was water, it was dust, wasn't it?
It was dust. And before I even shot the products, I wiped them all down. I actually rinsed off the entire packaging because it was plastic and I was able to. And then I wiped it down with like a microfiber cloth. But like, there's so many things that go through the air, and as you're shooting, as you're kicking up things, it'll just get attracted to the bottle. So if you zoom in on the final edited photos and you see imperfections, you should just remove them, because if you could see them, then your client's going to see them.
Yeah, and I mean, you and me both have probably learned the hard way. When you handle a product that, first of all, is glossy or is glass or has any sort of plastic surface, you can see fingerprints.
Yeah, very much so.
I spent hours trying to edit fingerprints off of beverages, because I shoot a lot of lifestyle, health and wellness beverage brands. Can't tell you how many times, whether it's reflection or fingerprints. So yeah, that attention to detail is important. Brandon, one thing that you did that I was kind of super impressed by, and like, dude, how did you do that? Was in this shoot that you did, there was such a variety of images that came out of it, and you shot on the same poster board. When you told me that you achieved the shots you did on a poster board, and all you did was kind of mess around lighting and your angles of how you were capturing the photos, I was blown away. So how did you achieve a variety of images when shooting in-house with limited resources?
So I think the beauty behind that was the fact that it was very limited and that I had to be creative. Usually if you have like a bunch of props and a bunch of different settings, that you can kind of get lazy and just, end up shooting the same thing just in different settings. But I didn't have that option. So I literally just had white backdrops and my window. But fortunately, the window had regular shutter blinds, which you can get like nice, cool little shadow effects. I could pick that up and I still have like the window square dividers on that, or I could lift up the window, the entire window itself, and just have straight natural light. So that gave me 3 options right off the bat. And if you're shooting flat lay, straight on, or like a 45-degree angle, you get ×3 of that for each product. You can then, product stack, where you could have multiple products in one shot. You could take some out, you could put some in, and you really just play with it, because you're so limited to what you can do. your brain just, starts churning more gears that you didn't think you had.
Yeah.
And you just get other ideas. So like, I mean, I did a flat lay, and I hardly ever do flat lays. I'm not that great at them. My mind just doesn't process flat lays. I'm usually like on the go shooting products. But I grabbed a few, pieces of jewelry, some makeup, like a little tray, and then, the color scheme was there, so it looked perfect. And I just had, that extra shot that the client wouldn't expect just shooting off a straight white poster board.
That is sweet. And what I love about it is, again, I'm not even the client, but when you delivered the photos to me just to get feedback from me on them and to show me them, and you didn't even tell me you were using a poster board, I was like, dude, how did you achieve these?
I didn't know that.
They looked like photos that you would see in a magazine or on a billboard for, a skincare or beauty brand. And I'm encouraged and I'm motivated and inspired by you, because I think now's the time for photographers to get out and shoot. And when I say get out, shoot inside your house. You're surrounded by objects and props that you maybe didn't even think you had. And again, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money in order to achieve images in-house. The poster boards cost you under $20. You had your camera gear, you used natural lighting, you made sure that you were shooting on a day that it was sunny. It definitely inspires me. And I think other photographers are going to watch this and be like, you know what, I'm going to go out and do that. Especially because, like you said, I'm not the best flat lay photographer either. Man, I've been shooting so many flat lays, and there's days where I'm like, I'm just so discouraged because Pinterest has like the best of the best flat lays.
Yeah, but it's the best inspo board that you could have, which is Pinterest. I don't know how their algorithm works, but it's the best to create a mood board.
Dude, it's the Grammys of like mood boards.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing like how they play with shadows from plants. Like I'm sure everybody has a plant in their house that they wouldn't expect to use in a photo shoot, not even have it directly in the shot, but just have it as a shadow.
Totally. That's good. Yeah, I want everyone to go and follow you and check out your work, because I definitely want to follow up within the next couple months and just kind of see where things are going with you in New Jersey. And then when you get back to Miami, hopefully maybe we can do like a live video in Miami, which would be kind of sweet.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Cool, man.
It'll definitely be warmer for me too, and it's definitely better lighting. I think I've had like one good day out of the past week and a half with lighting here.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but you're in Minneapolis, so
it's yeah, Minneapolis never wants to turn over to spring. It's still chilly out. But yeah, I appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on here. I'm gonna put Brandon's information right here if you guys want to go and check him out on Instagram or his website or his Behance website, which is insane. I'm definitely going to be working with him within the next 6 months on projects. So Brandon, I appreciate your time.
And we'll chat soon.